What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher, and welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. Now, today we are actually out at Ontario Starfest, so we're up in Canada. So this is a pre-recorded episode. So if you have any questions and stuff like that, you can either put them in the chat that's going on, and we'll get to them, or make a comment, or of course you can always email us at info@skywatchusa.com. As well, please go ahead, like and subscribe a video. Lets us know we're doing a good job. We do know that a lot of people are not subscribed, which I get, but let us know we're doing a good job. And then, of course, if you want to support the channel any more or further than that, you can go over to skywatcher.threadless.com and go pick up some cool swag there. And we also have sales going on at the time of this recording. And other than that, that is pretty much it. But yeah, head over to our website, skywatchusa.com. Check out the sales that are going on at the time of this recording. This airs August 9th, 2024. So if you're watching this in the future, the sale's probably over. All right. So today we're talking about building an eyepiece kit. And this is something that every visual astronomer goes through. And it does change over time. You add eyepieces, you do all kinds of stuff, your collection grows. But we're going to talk about what it's like building an eyepiece kit and some things that you can consider if this is your first time doing it, or maybe you're upgrading or whatever's going on. We're going to talk about things that you should consider when you're actually going through and setting up a kit of eyepieces, and what you should consider going with that before jumping in and maybe investing in a really nice case. And that's what we're talking about. So an eyepiece kit really is, let me just go to this next one here. Your eyepiece kit is really going to be the backbone of your observing equipment. The telescopes that we use, of course, give us all different kinds of views. Whether you're using a large aperture Dobsonian telescope or a small refractor or anything in between, you want to make sure that the kit that supports whatever the telescope system is really solid and really meets the needs that you, the observer, are going to need to achieve whatever you're viewing. And that can be hard because there's a ton of options and eyepieces out there, filters, diagonals, there's a ton of stuff. And there's a lot of us out there that probably have a bunch of eyepieces, from the little cheap set that we started with to maybe something really high end like Pentax or Teleview or Nikon or things like that. But at the heart of your observing system are your eyepieces. Your eyepieces are going to dictate the magnification, the field of view. All of that is covered by what your eyepieces are going to give you. And the kit, at least this is how I've learned, and it's something that I have kind of passed down as I do telescope classes, and of course today we're talking about it as well. It's good to invest in a good set of eyepieces and accessories to support your observing telescopes, especially because your telescopes a lot of times tend to come and go. As new stuff shows up, we add things, or maybe you have to minimize, or maybe you finally could get your big Dobsonian or a big Schmidt-Cassegrain, whatever the case is going to be. A lot of times we invest in a good set of eyepieces, and those are going to stick with us as we add and trade out and upgrade telescopes. Obviously, we will do that with eyepieces as well. But when you finally have a good, solid set of eyepieces and accessories, a lot of times that set will maintain and stay with you as you switch out telescopes. And I've found over the years for myself that to be true. So I've invested in my eyepieces, and they're here. They're where I need them. They cover the range that I need, and the telescopes come and go. And occasionally I'll end up getting another lens that might fit the bill a little bit differently than something else floating around. It really just depends at that point what is going on and what I'm trying to achieve with a lot of things. Like I said earlier, you want to invest in a good kit. Sorry, I've got a bunch of stuff going on. 3D printers running. Hopefully that's not too obnoxious in the background. I did a test and couldn't really hear anything. So if it is a problem, we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. But invest in a good set of lenses. I'm going to go through this because we're going to get to each section here and I don't want to kind of overlap. But the best equipment is what you are going to use. I was watching a video recently put on by Woodland Hills Camera where they were talking to Don Penzak. My good friend Daniel Mounsey was interviewing Don Penzak, who is a really respected observer, and he sold eyepieces for a long time and has all kinds of information going on with everything there. And it's really a good episode to actually take a look at if you want to know more about eyepieces, because a lot of times, including myself, I'll be perusing Astromart or Cloudy Nights or whatever's going on. I'll be looking through that and be like, oh, there's a really cool eyepiece, or oh, there's a really cool this, and maybe I should get it, when there's really probably no need for you to get it. I was going down the path of maybe I need to invest in some orthos because I don't have orthos for, planetary viewing. I don't do a lot of planetary viewing, honestly. And the times that I am doing it, I'm going out and doing an event. I rarely get to view for myself. And the thing that was going on here was really well documented in that conversation between Daniel and Don Penzak. I highly recommend watching. It's not too long. But you get a lot of this information where it's like, oh, this eyepiece is really good for this type of observing, and this eyepiece is good for this type of observing. And there was a point in there that really resonated with me, and I think I needed to hear it at the time, where the best eyepiece that you have is whatever's in the telescope at the time. So whenever the seeing clicks into gear, that is the best eyepiece. It doesn't matter if you have a Zeiss in there or a TMB, monocentric, whatever super high-end thing, or even a basic little Plossel that you got from Amazon or something like that. Whatever eyepiece is in the telescope when the seeing really kicks in is the best eyepiece for that moment. So a lot of times we spend so much time rummaging over what we should have or what we should get or what I should spend my money on that you kind of forget that whatever you have is probably plenty good enough and will give you that really good view. It's just about getting out and actually observing. That is where we need to remember. And I know I get caught up in this a lot, especially during the summer months. It's monsoon season here in Arizona. It's too hot to go out and observe. It's not comfortable to just be outside with a telescope. So you kind of get itchy to go do something. So you feel the need to rummage through stuff or buy more stuff because you probably are not getting out and doing the amount of observing or imaging that you would want. Today we're talking about observing, but you're not getting out and using your equipment as much as you'd like. So we end up hopping on forum websites and social media and rummaging through things, giving opinions, buying things we probably don't actually need to support ourselves and our observing needs. And you just end up accumulating stuff. So it's really good just to kind of step back, take a breather, and realize maybe I've got everything that I need flushed out, or what is it that I actually need that will benefit my observing, and I'm not just wasting money. But consider everything that you might need when you're building an observing kit, an eyepiece kit. That's not just eyepieces, because at the end of this, we're going to talk about cases. Good cases can be expensive, but you have to remember that a good case is protecting a large investment inside of it. So let's talk about the big one, eyepieces. Honestly, a good eyepiece kit doesn't need to consist of a lot of different lenses. Honestly, you could probably do it with 3. It really just depends on what you are trying to achieve. I am a deep sky observer. I do a little bit of planetary and solar, and my biggest thing is outreach. So I need to make sure all my equipment covers all those bases. And I tend to have a lot of overlap, but I do a lot of events to where I need backups for things. But in general, if it was just me doing observing, probably 3 to 6 lenses are all that I would actually need. And you can add more and fill in the gaps as you go. This was a early eyepiece set that I had many years ago at this point. I don't have any of these anymore. They've all been sold off. But it was a nice set because I was doing deep sky observing. I had the 35 pan optic for nice low wide field. I had the 20, 14, and 9 to kind of flush out the mid range. And then the 4 and the 6 radians there were my high power planetary stuff. They didn't come out to play that often. But as I was taught, you want to invest in good lenses up front because, again, those lenses will stay with you as telescopes come in and out. You want to make sure that those lenses are going to adapt to whatever your observing needs are going to be as well. So as I've told people before in my telescope classes and things like that, is you can go get more eyepieces at any time. And there is a lot of options from really inexpensive things to ultra high end. And I'm not saying you need to go spend a ton of money like what you've got sitting in this picture right here. But you want to pay attention to what you're trying to achieve, and B, is that going to fit the needs long term. So a lot of times I've seen people who they've got a couple little eyepieces that they got with their telescope, usually like a 25 and a 10. And the next conversation is, what should I get? And people will probably tell you, like, well, get yourself a 32 and maybe like a mid-range. I would probably tell you that too. If you're brand new, what I usually recommend to people is going and getting one of those Celestron 1.25" eyepiece kits. They're like $200, which is a decent amount of money, but hear me out. $200, and what that gives you is it's a set of eyepieces from like 32 down to I think like a 6. I think it might come with a Barlow lens now. I don't know. And it's got some colorized filters and they're for planets. What that little kit is going to do is for about the next year or so, go out and start observing with the lenses that are in that kit and whatever came with your telescope. That kit's normally built around the thought that you're probably getting a 25 and a 10 millimeter, so it kind of flushes it out. But the nice thing about that kit is for $200, you can get a wide range of lenses and focal lengths, and you can go out and start observing. And then you're going to figure out, oh, for what I'm trying to do, I really like a 32. I like a 17. I like the 9 and a Barlow. Whatever you find that you use more of. And the nice thing about that kit is it's going to let you play with the different magnifications. It's going to let you understand how focal lengths of eyepieces work. You can even play with the planetary filters, which I think are kind of a waste, honestly. And if it still comes with the Barlow, I'm not sure. But it might let you try out a Barlow lens as well. But the great thing about that kit is for $200, it's going to let you experiment with all different kinds of focal lengths and magnifications on your telescope. And over the next year or so, you're going to start to see which eyepieces, in particular, which focal lengths you like to use the most. At this point, that is where I would say it's time to go and actually maybe start investing in better eyepieces at that point. Because what a lot of times will happen, and I've worked in the retail side of things too, is you'll have something like Explore Scientifics or Televiews or Pentax or something that's a few $100 per lens. And it's like, wow, it's a lot of money. I can't do that right now. A lot of times you end up wasting more money when you end up buying and selling and doing all kinds of stuff, because you buy, you sell, you trade up, whatever you're doing, it accumulates. So I actually find it's better to figure out what focal lengths work for you. For me in particular, I like a 30. something in the 20s. 17 millimeter is my favorite focal length because I think it's a really good deep sky focal length that pops some clusters out. You got a little bit of magnification, but it's not crazy high power. It's like right in the middle. So for me, a 17 is like a critical focal length for me to have. But I've learned over the years that I just like that focal length, and it really works for what I need to do for my observing needs. So I always make sure I've got a 17 or something really close in my kit to make sure that fits the bill. But that's just what I have found. So, but what I'm saying is once you've kind of figured out your eyepiece selection, and this is mainly for beginners, then spend the money slowly, one at a time, figuring out which lenses you want to replace and actually investing some decent money in those focal lengths that you actually really like using. And maybe it's not in the budget to do, Televiews or Explore Scientifics, which are great eyepieces. They've gotten a lot more expensive over the years, but they've got some nice lenses there. But Botter makes some really good stuff. Celestron's got some nice stuff, particularly their XL LX series. If you're on a budget, those lenses are very nice. But also things that you want to consider when you're buying eyepieces. And I don't want to go too in depth with this because we did a whole episode in the past about considering eyepieces. And this isn't supposed to be a revamp of that. But basically what we're going for here is you want something that's got quality that's going to stick with you over the years. But before you go and spend a bunch of money, try and figure out what focal lengths you like using. Another really good thing is to go to star parties, go to a club meeting, go to a public star party, meet some local people, but you'll also meet people who probably have already gone through this process and they have lenses. Go try them. I remember the first time I saw a 35 panoptic, it's like, wow, this is a really big, heavy lens. Is that going to fit your needs? You have to consider all of that. But going to star parties, meeting people, and trying different equipment is a really big way to kind of, move out what you don't want and try the things that you might want to get. Especially when we're talking about decent eyepieces. But invest in a good set of lenses. And those are going to change over time. But you're going to want a good set of lenses. Usually a good set is between 3 and 6. I like to flush things out a little bit more. My sets are generally bigger. But that's because I find that there's times that I need certain focal lengths. But every person's going to be different. So those are things that you want to think about. Now, an eyepiece kit is not just eyepieces. There are other accessories that we need to consider, especially before we go out and invest in a nice case. Because we want to make sure whatever we need for our telescope and supporting accessories that we want to contain together are all going to be housed in that case. So consider the supporting accessories. You can see this is my eyepiece kit right here. For the record, I have had people look at this case and they're like, wow, that's a lot of money. That's a crazy set of eyepieces. And yes, I would agree. It is a really well flushed out set of eyepieces, and it is way beyond 6 eyepieces. But I use a lot of different telescopes, and there's a lot of different reasons that I have these. Just because we have a little bit of time, I will run through it. The 55 Teleview Plossel up at the top left, that is for hydrogen alpha viewing. When I was using the Daystar Quantum, I needed a very low power eyepiece. That eyepiece is there. That's really the only reason it's in the case. The 41 Panoptic I picked up years ago when I obtained a C14. I needed a lower power than my 31 Nagler. The 41 Panoptic offered the lowest power available in a 2-inch barrel, so that's why I got that one. Now it's my night vision eyepiece. That's really the only reason it's still around, is because it pairs really well with the night vision, and that's really the only reason it's there. 31 Nagler is a workhorse of a lens, also a 35 panoptic or something in this range. These are just televiews. I'm just going off of why I have them. That doesn't mean you have to go duplicate it, but they're great lenses. 31 Nagler is like my go-to when I've got the refractors out for an event. I like that wide expanse view. It does a great job. Now, the next set are Ethos, the 21, 17, 13, 10, 8, and 6. Now, the 21 Ethos is my most used eyepiece because I'm using a very fast, large aperture Dobsonian. When you have these sub f4 Dobsonians, you can't really use like a 31 nat. You can. But if you're using too low of an eyepiece, for example, if I put the 31 Nagler on my 28 inch, the exit pupil of the eyepiece is too big. It's larger than my eye will get, so I'm wasting light. So I have to use the 21 as my default start eyepiece. So the 21 Ethos is my most used lens because it adapts so well to my large Dobsonian. So that is why that one is there. So, and really the eyepieces that probably get the most, like I said, 6 focal lengths are the 6 Ethos. The 21, the 6 Ethos eyepieces that I've got. The 21, 17, 13, 10, 8, 6. And honestly, out of those 6, the 21, 17, and 13 are the most used. Occasionally the 10 will come out depending on the seeing conditions. So right there, I'm showing you I've got this set, but if you ask me what do I use the most, 3 eyepieces. That's all I really use. The other ones are there to just flush out what I might need for that night. I do like the 8 and the 6 Ethos. They're very good high power eyepieces. Now that I have a tracking platform for the Dobsonian, I'm sure they will come out and get used more, but they're great in refractors. Now for planets, I have a 3.5 and 4.5 Delos. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, I was doing our solar event. My trailer was there overnight. Someone broke into it, stole a bunch of stuff, including my eyepiece kit. So this is the replacement after dealing with all of the insurance stuff. This was the replacement set. I did consider getting the other Ethos, the 3.7 and 4.7, but here's something to consider on very high power eyepieces is there's a lot of very good options out there, and those Ethos SX, the 3.7, 4.7 are phenomenal lenses, and I've often thought about getting them just to flush out the Ethos set, but for the small amount of time that I use the 3.5 and 4.5 millimeter focal lengths, I couldn't justify spending that kind of money on 2 lenses. I could get both of those high power lenses for less than probably what one of those Ethos would cost. So it was more of a budget thing. I had to think about, is this really the best use of the money available? I didn't think so. But there are other people out there that love the Ethos SX eyepieces, and I just don't use those focal lengths enough to justify the expense, but that doesn't mean they're bad eyepieces. So just running through the set there, and then at the end in the bottom right, that's the night vision. That doesn't count, but it's a specialized additional accessory that lives in the case. I've also got filters up at the top right because I use those a lot, and a collimator. So that's my eyepiece set that I use the most. But after running through the logistics of each one, now I hope you kind of understand why they all exist. Honestly, if I had to take a step back and I was only using my 28-inch Dob, it'd probably be the 3 or 4 Ethos eyepieces. It'd probably be the 21. I love the 17, but the 13 is probably all I would need. Honestly, if I had to pick 3, it'd probably be a 21, 13, and 8. That would be 3 eyepieces that would handle just about everything, and we'd be off to the races. But here's some other things you want to consider. Number 1, a diagonal. If you're using a Schmidt-Cassegrain or a refractor, you're going to need a diagonal. That is something that should be in your eyepiece kit. Maybe it lives in the telescope case. For myself, because of how often I'm juggling different systems around and different telescopes, my diagonal lives in the eyepiece case, because sometimes I might have this telescope or sometimes I might have that telescope. And if the diagonal is just stuck in that case, that means I have to go rummage through it and find it. You want to make sure whatever you're going to be using is going to be easy to get when it's time to go. You don't want to be rummaging around, digging through all your stuff, being like, okay, I need this and I need that. It's like, we want to get on the road and go do some observing or go in the backyard. You don't want to be fidgeting around in the dark or in the garage looking for parts. Consolidate stuff to where it's like, when I grab this case, I know that it will support A, B, C, whatever. But yeah, so a good diagonal is something you probably want to consider if you're using a refractor or a Schmidt-Cassegrain. Obviously, if you're using a Newtonian or a Dobsonian, you don't need that. So, but a good diagonal is something to have. I like using dielectric diagonals. Dielectric is a type of coating that goes on the mirror that basically is like a 99% reflectivity coatings. So you're getting 99% of the light reflected up into the eyepiece. Investing in a good diagonal is not a bad thing to do. There's a lot of very nice diagonals on the market nowadays, and they come in all the major sizes, particularly 1.25 and 2 inch. If your telescope accepts 2 inch, I'd usually just say get a 2 inch diagonal and use an 1.25 adapter if you need to do it. So I like getting a good diagonal. You have to remember that your optical system is only as good as the weakest link. So if you've got a really nice telescope and really nice lenses and a really kind of mediocre diagonal, it's only going to be as good as the diagonal. Getting a good quality diagonal is not super difficult anymore. You don't need to go crazy with it. This was an old William Optics one that I had. It worked fine. Right now I have a Teleview Everbright as my main diagonal, and then I do have some of the Skywatcher dielectric diagonals because they're just kind of abundant in this line of work. I honestly can't tell you the difference. I'm sure if I put them on a bench and I measured how good the Teleview mirror is versus how good any other mirror is, there'd probably be a difference. But at the eyepiece, I don't spend enough time comparing A and B to tell you that there's a difference. But invest in a good quality diagonal. Get something that's got dielectric coatings. Those are generally very good coatings. They last a long time. And a compression ring. It gets it really nice, tight fitting, or one of those like rotational lock collar kind of things. Another thing is Barlow's or telecentric lenses. This is a PowerMate, just for example there. That's a 4X PowerMate, which is probably a lot of power for visual. It's mostly a photographic thing. But Barlow's. I personally am not a fan of Barlow's. I think it stacks the lenses too high. It makes balance kind of weird. I don't like using them. But they are a very, very helpful tool. It allows you to increase the magnification quickly and efficiently with your eyepieces, and it will double the capability of your eyepiece kit. If you've got two eyepieces, like a 25 and a 10, if you put a 2X Barlow into your kit, now you also have a 12.5 and a 5mm, which flushes it out pretty well. Barlows are generally very popular for those starting out because it's an easy and cost-effective way to get a wider range of magnifications and focal lengths without going nuts. Again, I'm not big on Barlows. I would rather have the eyepiece that gives me the magnification that I'm looking for. That's just my personal preference. I do find that Barlows tend to degrade the view a little bit. Now, that is a very minor thing. And I would like to actually state, just for clarity, that the PowerMates from Teleview are not Barlows. They are a different design. The mentality is the same, but it's a very different approach to... Sorry, the camera decided to go. It's a very different approach. They are probably some of the best in the Barlow category. I'll just throw them in there. They're more like telecentrics at this point, or focal extenders, I guess you could call them. Explore Scientific calls theirs focal extenders. Nonetheless, just for clarity, a power mate is not a true Barlow, but you're still increasing the magnification of that. But we're getting kind of into the weeds there. But some kind of focal extender, whether it's a Barlow or a power mate or whoever you're buying it from, can be a very good addition to your eyepiece collection and in your kit, because there might be times where you want to push the magnification higher and maybe you don't have that. So having a nice Barlow or focal extender in the kit might be something good to have. And like I said, it also is more cost effective rather than you go buying the eyepiece of that nature. So a really nice 2x Barlow, maybe it's 2-inch, we'll just say the 2x power mate is a few $100s, but that might save you a few $1,000s because you don't have to go around and then buy different focal lengths. So it just depends on how you want to approach it. Just over the years, for me, as I've been able to move stuff around and your budget opens up a little bit more, you start to fill out those eyepiece focal lengths over time. And that's something that I would also like people to remember is when you see someone who has like a really nice eyepiece kit, it's like, wow, that's a lot of money, or you've got a lot of that didn't happen overnight. It's like anything else. And that's the great thing about an eyepiece kit is don't feel the need to just go out and dump like a mint on really nice eyepieces. Add one. It's like, oh, I really like using my 32 Plössl, but I'm ready to do an upgrade. Okay, I save up and get yourself a nice 30-something millimeter eyepiece from whatever manufacturer you like. Put that in the case. Okay, great. And then when the holidays come around and someone's like, well, what would be cool to get you? Tell them an eyepiece you've had your eye on. They're small, they're easy to put in a stocking or whatever gift it might be, depending on the holiday or special event. If there's a gift, it's a good thing to just have available because they're generally small and they make a good gift for people. So that's how over the years you start to flush out your eyepiece kit, or you find a deal on the used market, or there's a sale. Don't feel the need to just dump all this money in at once. You can if you want to do it, but that's the nice thing about eyepiece collections is you can build them. This is a more specialized item, particularly if you are using really fast Newtonians, which are very popular nowadays. A coma corrector. My Dobsonian is f3.3. It requires a coma corrector. Mine is actually built into the telescope, but there are others like the Paracore 2 here and other ones like Explore Scientifics. There's Botter. There's a lot of options out there where they're not built in. That's going to have to go somewhere. So make sure if you do need something special like a coma corrector or a Barlow or a diagonal or something like that, that you are considering where that might fit in your case. So when we finally get to the point where we have to purchase a case, you know what's going to go in there. Another thing is filters. Filters for visual can be very, very powerful tools to have. And we did a whole episode on visual filters. So if you want to go back and understand those. For my personal kit, this is what I personally use. These are the 6 filters that I have in the case. I rarely use some of these, but at times it's actually really nice to have. My go-to are the O3 and a UHC. O3 is great for any emission nebulas, like the Ring Nebula or the Dumbbell Nebula or stuff like that. And a UHC is a broader band filter, which can be utilized for a lot of different things. Those two are probably going to be your workhorse filters. After that, you get the H-beta filter, the horse head filter. That's a really cool one to have around because it can do other things other than just the horse head. California Nebula. It does some cool stuff on the Orion Nebula. It's a really cool filter to have around because it just shows different structures in the nebulas. But I would probably put that as like the third filter for the deep sky set that you'd want. But I wouldn't say run out and get one immediately. Polarizer, that's a really great one if you're doing like the moon or Venus is very helpful with a polarizer. And then my two planetary filters, I don't like using color filters. I don't like the way they shift the color. I want to try to keep it as neutral as possible and, make it look like natural. So I like using the Botter contrast booster and the Botter neodymium filter. The neodymium one works really nicely for planets. It kind of calms the seeing down a little bit because it is an IR cut filter. They're not that expensive. They do also double down as a slight light pollution filter as well. And then above that, you would have the contrast booster. Contrast booster, I like to think of as kind of like a UHC light in a way. It does work well on nebulas. I do find that it works on planets as well to kind of boost it a little bit. It does throw a little bit of a weird tone into it, a little bit more purplish look, bright planets. But I have found that it can be very helpful on like Mars and Jupiter and bringing out some of the cloud bands and stuff like that. So those are the picture right there that you see. Those are my planetary filters. And I can use them for a variety of things. But I like stuff that does multi-role capability. So that's what I use these filters for. But that is my full filter set right there. I do have one of the old Lumicon Comet filters. I don't have that in the kit anymore. It's stowed. I just never really found that it did much. It was just something cool to have in the case, but I haven't used it, and I don't think they make them anymore anyway. But those would be the filters that I would recommend if you're trying to build up a set. O3 and UHC are kind of a must if you're a deep sky observer. The rest of them you can add if you need. But that's kind of my rounded set right there. But you want to consider that because the filters have to go somewhere too, and they take up space. Miscellaneous accessories. There's other stuff that ends up there. Like I said, for me, I've got my night vision in there because that is a big thing. It does have its own little bag when you buy them, but I wanted it to be in its own spot. It should be where it's going to get used all the time. So it lives in there. Miscellaneous stuff as well. You can see up at the top there, I have my collimator. That's a Hotech crosshair collimator. I like keeping that together. And then I've got some room to add some stuff too. Another thing that I have started doing to my cases since stuff got stolen is I have trackers in a lot of my cases. I am an Apple user, so I've got an iPhone. I like to use AirTags. So I have AirTags in a lot of equipment cases now, and I just hide them inside there. And that way, if anything ever happens, I know roughly where it went. And that's just a way to protect your investment, is putting some kind of like tracker inside of your equipment cases to protect that investment. So, and they cost like nothing in comparison to what you're putting in that case. You're just protecting all of that. But yeah, your miscellaneous accessories are going to be, like I said, maybe you've got some tools that you want to go in there. Maybe you've got a collimator, whatever that you want to use. Make sure you give yourself some room to allow you to have space to accommodate, that, and maybe give yourself some expansion over time. But I would recommend that you figure out your eyepiece arrangement before getting a case. Now, we're about to jump into cases. One other thing that you might want to consider before investing in a case is how do you want to arrange the eyepieces and some of your kit when it's in the case. And I've done it both ways. You can either do them vertical, where the eyepieces stand straight up. You might need a deeper case depending on it. Or you can lay them flat. Laying them flat obviously takes up more space. So you want to make sure you've got room to allow for that. The reason I like to lay mine flat is because if I'm doing an event, I want to be able to see what eyepieces are there and what are available. I like being able to have that visual. Now, some of my other eyepieces are in the vertical position. It's just the way it fit. Maybe that's just the way the case allowed. This eyepiece case is actually laughably big. I really wish I went with something smaller and easier. It has wheels on it, but it's a big case. And I really wish I had something smaller, but it protects it and I've got room and it works. But I like smaller eyepiece cases. But in the arrangement that I wanted them laying flat so I could see the focal lengths. That's just how it ended up. Now let's talk about cases. Now there are a lot of different cases available on the market. You can get them from a number of places, but I would recommend investing in a good quality case. Now you could go to Home Depot or you can go online. You could probably find those cheap aluminum cases and they're going to do okay, but they do fall apart over time. You do want to remember a couple things. Number one, you're going to be lugging this out into some less than ideal locations. So you need to make sure you have a case that's going to stand up to the elements, that's going to stand up to being tossed in the car, stacking stuff on it. It's going to take a beating over the years. And you're trekking a fair amount of money that you've invested, whatever's in that case. You want to protect it. That's why we bought a case. So making sure you invest in a good case is something that I would highly recommend. And I know cases can get quite expensive. Here's what I think are the best cases available. You have SKB, you have Pelican, you have Apache. Apache cases are generally at like Harbor Freight. And I've actually started to use Apaches more because number one, there's a few Harbor Freights nearby, and the price is really good. The negative part of an Apache case is they don't come in unique sizes as like Pelican and SKB. So if you're looking for some unique sizes or you need the case to hold a large assortment of stuff or you're putting in a weird mount or something, SKB or Pelican has a very wide selection of sizes and applications for their cases, where Apache, it's like a dozen different sizes, but a lot of times it works really well for protecting the most. Now, what I like about these three case companies is these are hard molded plastic cases. They've got nice latches on them and they're waterproof. They have O-rings on them and they have that pluck foam inside. So you can really customize the case layout the way that you want. You can drop these on the ground. They can get rain on them. They can get dirty, mud, whatever. These cases are designed to handle the elements, where something like an aluminum covered case just isn't going to do it. So these Apache cases you can get for less than $100 a lot of times. And the SKB and Pelicans, they can get actually quite pricey depending on how big and elaborate they actually are. But if you want a good quality case and you don't want to spend a ton of money on it, but you want that SKB Pelican style, look up the Apache cases. They're well worth it. And a lot of times for an eyepiece kit, they have several sizes that work really well. And it's only if you need something weird, large, unique, some interesting layout, go check Pelican and SKB. I actually prefer SKB. I've kind of transitioned from Pelican to SKB over the years. Reason being is I like the latches of an SKB better. Pelican, you really have to like pull up on the latch, and I've had my fingers get jammed and messed up and stuff because of how a Pelican latch is, and they can be difficult, especially if you're wearing like gloves and stuff like that. SKB has these very nice latches where you press a button and a little tab and then pull up. So you're not actually fighting anything. There's a release and you can just open the latch, no big deal. And when you close it, they lock in place. You can't just open the latch. So That's kind of why I favor SKBs a little bit more. And as I've needed them, I will track down an SKB case that fits the need. But if I just need something that's a lot more budget friendly and I don't need it to be some weird size, the Apache cases from Harbor Freight are awesome. And they will keep up with just about anything else. Like I said, you can stack them. They're waterproof. You can do anything to these things, and they will stand the test of time, protecting that investment that you've put so much effort and money and time into, and protect that for many, many years to come. And that's what you want. So, but lay it before you go buy the case. Figure out what your layout's going to be. Maybe on the carpet at home or on the floor. Get your kit together and put some cardboard out that has like how you want to lay it out, and then kind of draw out the size that you might need, or, you know, lay it out some way. We do this with fish tanks a lot. When you're considering on getting a new fish tank, you want to look up kind of the measurements of whatever you're looking at. And then on the floor of your home, you get blue painter's tape and just kind of mark out how much space this thing might actually take in your home. You can actually do that on a smaller scale with something like this, where maybe you put some blue painter's tape on the floor. Maybe you've got some spare cardboard laying in the garage, whatever that's going to help get you a diagram of, okay, I have these lenses. The case I'm interested in is, you know, the inner diameter is 16 by 12 or whatever the case may be. And they should have the inner dimensions actually listed online. So you can check that out, lay it out, get a feel of how you want to lay it out in that space. And then that will help you decide, number one, is the case I'm interested in big enough to support my needs? And number two, is this actually going to work with what I need? Or do I need to go smaller? Do I need to go bigger? Do I have room to grow? Will I have to get a new case because this one is maxed out? So if there's an eyepiece that comes up in the future or an accessory, do I have room to accommodate it? Or is that going to have to go somewhere else? It's no fun to have to go buy a whole nother case to fit one accessory. Unless it's like a really important thing. Or you end up buying another case that's specific to this one accessory, and then you have all kinds of cases you got to lug around. So I like to bring things down, because we all know when we're going out to a star party or an event, there's a lot of stuff you have to consider. There's all the parts of your telescope system. If you're going out for a weekend, you've got camping and clothes and food, and you've got all that to consider. So whatever it takes to reduce your footprint and make things easier on yourself when you're heading out the door and packing, that's the goal, is to minimize and streamline what you need to grab when you're heading out the door, because we already have a lot of stuff we're worried about. So having a case that accommodates all the needs of what you're looking for, and you know that when I grab this case, it contains everything I am going to need to support this system. That's a nice feeling to have, and you know it. And that's the nice thing about having cases that have like the pluck foam or slots, is if you open it up to check, if all the slots are filled, you know you're good to go. If there isn't a slot that is open, something's missing, and then we have to go back and check it out and fill that in with whatever's missing. So that's why I have everything set up in the way that I do, because I do a lot of public events. I do corporate events. I'm going out for myself. I need to know that when I grab this, I'm good to go. Now, I've got different sets of eyepieces for different things. So I try to actually buy cases in different colors. That's another thing I like about the Apache cases, is you can usually go to Harbor Freight and they normally have like black, green, tan, yellow, orange. If you've got a range of equipment, you've got like half a dozen colors to actually pick from, and you can color code it. So like for me in this picture right here, the big black case, that's my big Teleview set. The orange one is kind of my cheaper set of eyepieces, but they're still quality. Those I generally bring for beginners at events where it's like, hey, I just got a telescope, I don't know what eyepieces to kind of upgrade to. That kit's right there if they want something that's more cost effective and it's ready to go. And then the tan one is the Pentax XW collection that goes out mainly when the refractors go out. So there's a range of different things there, and I like to keep things as organized as possible. I'm not the most organized person in the world, so whatever I can do to reduce that and help that streamline it, the better. So yeah, that is just my thought process on it. I hope it's helpful to everybody. I know we all go through this, and we're all trying to figure out the best way to make things fit. But organizing your stuff, making sure it's all there rather than spread out, or if you want something that's just nicer than some cheap aluminum case or like a toolbox, and you want stuff to actually be nice and seated, investing in a really nice case is helpful, and it will stick with you for years and keep up with that use. You want to have something that's going to keep up with that as well. But all right, everyone, that's it for it today. Obviously, this is recorded, so I'm not able to do the live Q&A and stuff like that. But that's building an eyepiece kit. I really hope that was helpful for somebody. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always email us at info@skywatchusa.com. If you need product support, you can email us at support@skywatchusa.com. If you want to support the channel, please go ahead and leave a like, subscribe. You can go over to skywatcher.threadless.com, pick up some cool swag. And you can also head over to skywatcherusa.com and check out everything that's available there as well. Now, next week, we will be back. The August 16th episode, we'll be back live, which is great because we're talking about the new Strain Wave series, the wave mounts. A lot of people have been waiting on these. I will say right now, they are going to be coming very, very soon. We definitely appreciate anybody who pre-ordered and you're waiting for them. They will be coming. Probably see them at the end of the month, mid-September, by the time they get through the QA process. The first shipment of any product is always difficult because our QC team here in the US, it's new to them, it's new to us. We're having to figure out the best way to approach the QC process. So the first shipment or two takes some more time, and then as they become normal production units, they come through pretty quickly. So if you have one on order, please be patient. We're waiting for them just like you guys are. But next week, we're going over the wave mounts. We have guide data to show you. I can show you images from them. So we'll actually have in the field results rather than just like a basic overview like we did introducing them. We'll actually have like nitty gritty information for you at that point. So join us next week if you want to know more about the new Wave series. We'll be going over that. But again, thanks again for watching, everyone. If you are coming to Starfest, come by, say hi. We will be there. The Strain Wave mounts will be there. We'll have the 100 and the 150 are out there right now. But yeah, that is pretty much it. So once again, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate your support. Please leave a like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next week for another episode of the What's Up Webcast, and we will be back live. So thank you very much. Clear skies. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. See you later. Bye.